we also continue our conversation around the NBA. We want to hear from the people. As Donnie and I debated during our second hour, the odds makers are starting to catch up on the Cleveland Cavaliers, the NBA's best team, winners of 12 consecutive games, now 52-10, first team in the association to claim a playoff berth already. And the odds are starting to dwindle to win the Eastern Conference and an NBA championship. But what exactly is the best bet around the Eastern Conference? That was the question for all of you in Fade the Public. At SportsGrid on Twitter, which team is the best bet? And like we did yesterday out west, let me highlight the phrasing. Which team is the best bet to win the Eastern Conference? Not the team we expect to win the East, but the best wager at this moment early here in the month of March. We listed the three best prices. The Celtics at -140, the Cavaliers at +220, and you got to go a pretty far way back now to get to the New York Knicks at 9-1. If you voted for other, we asked for a reply. And Donnie, as we expect, both from the odds makers' perspective, what we are seeing here and how actual games are played, we believe the Eastern Conference Finals matchup is going to be Cleveland and Boston. That's what the public is saying at SportsGrid on Twitter as well. But most of the public, or I should say more of the public, 45% to a little bit shy of 42%, is saying the best bet is the Cleveland Cavaliers at +220. DRS, I don't assume that you did, but did you fade the public?
No, I didn't. I went with the public. That 45%, that's me in there with the Cavaliers at a +220 price. And we always like to preface the question that's actually being asked. It's based on price point. What is your best bet here? Do you want the 220 or do you want the -140? Yeah, if you think the Celtics can win, you're going to go that direction. But again, it might sway you over to the Cavaliers with a better price point at +220. But also understand this. I'm getting +220, barring any disastrous injuries to either side. The Cavaliers will have home court advantage, and I will be getting the plus money price here. Absolutely sign me up on this. Now, you also see the New York Knicks at a 9-1 price. Interesting there. Karl-Anthony Towns stepping away from the team. Personal matters, missed the game the other day. Hopefully gets back on the court quickly. But that was one of those teams that we understand is ultra talented. But how do we approach them? Because in the biggest games, sometimes they don't perform up to the task that we believe. So for me, it just comes down to, yeah, that 9-1 price is nice on the Knicks, but 9-1 doesn't mean anything unless they actually win the Eastern Championship. And I don't think they're going to win that conference at all. I look at the Cavaliers, +220, 45%. The most people voted for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I completely agree with that. My question is, who's the other at the 8%? Who did they choose?
I don't believe we received a reply. No, not any Sixers. Ray Stuber Jr., hashtag let him know, which I guess is the hashtag for the Cavaliers. DRS is all about it. And, Donnie, you could consider the Cavs your true Eastern Conference team, as Philadelphia is probably not even going to sniff that Eastern Conference play in tournament. To me, the answer is simple. I also voted for the Cavaliers. The best bet, there's no doubt it's Cleveland. Listen, if the Eastern Conference Finals come around and it's Cleveland and Boston, the Celtics are going to be booked as a favorite, barring any catastrophic injuries for the C's. But they will not have home floor advantage. So right now, you could argue, is that the series price for the Eastern Conference Finals? Probably not. There'd be a couple of cents added either which way. Boston might even be a stronger favorite than they are currently at -140. Donnie, I do believe the Celtics would be a favorite in the Eastern Conference Finals, even if Cleveland has home floor advantage. But I don't know necessarily if you will get that +220 price on the Cavs for much longer. The best bet to win the Eastern Conference, it's Cleveland. I still think Boston does it, but the best bet at this moment, it's Cleveland.
Yeah, and also, it can't be too, like, if both of these teams get to the Eastern Conference Finals, it means they played well. I can't imagine the Cavaliers are +220. I still feel that there's sort of that built-in, like, we got to wait for the Cavs to do it in pressure moments. They're going to get some tests here in the playoffs. Some teams will play well. It's almost like we're not believing in them just despite they have the best record right now in the NBA. So if you're saying I need to bet that now, it's probably the best price point. And I do think the Cavaliers are the best team overall in the Eastern Conference because home court advantage does factor into that price. But it will be interesting to see what that price point is going to be once this series does take place, if it does. Because also what's going to factor in, did the Celtics get a little bit lucky to get there? Did the Celtics lay waste to everybody getting there? And the same thing with the Cavaliers. Man, they could have lost in round number 2 or round number 1 the way they're playing. Or did they go 4-0-4-0? And I'll see in the Eastern Conference Finals bring the pain here at this point. So it'll be fun to see how it matches up. But just from this poll alone, the plus 220 price point for me, too hard to pass up on the Cavs.
Best bet on the Cavaliers, no doubt. Just over a week and a half ago, a 3-1 number. We are seeing those prices on the Cavs starting to get caught up in terms of the odds market. We have asked that question. One of the odds makers going to reflect the regular season success for Cleveland and thus their playoff positioning in those conference odds. Outlook, and of course, to win an NBA championship. They are getting shorter by the day as the Cavs are riding yet again another double-digit win streak, 12 consecutive victories in a row. And Donnie, I'll just make this final point. When we talk about best bet, maybe there's a sprinkle on the Bucks. Maybe there's a sprinkle on somebody else. I don't really know outside of the Bucks who you would sprinkle on. The Knicks can't be the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Can't bet on them right now. And I'm not sure there is great value out there to actually get to a point of the Eastern Conference postseason where you could even have a cash-out option or a middling option on teams like Indiana, Detroit, Miami, whatever it may be. And if J.B. Bickerstaff was the guy to get Cleveland to the postseason but not elevate their ceiling, and Kenny Atkinson is that guy, the only good thing you could say for the Cavaliers, it is a new head coach, but it's largely the same cast and crew. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen. That was the 4 seed each of the past 2 postseasons. We'll see if those postseason lumps lead to playoff success. Let's start to break down some NBA games on this Thursday. Next. TV Tom Vecchio steps up and in on this Thursday on the early line on Sports Grid. Of course, that is Tom Vecchio of Sports Grid joining us here on this Thursday. We'll look around the NBA, including the hottest team right now in the Western Conference, the LA Lakers, and break down a ton for you from that prop perspective to get you ready for tonight's slate. Vecchio, as always, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being here.
Of course, thanks for having me. We are at an extremely important time in the NBA, important time in the NHL with the trade deadline tomorrow. NBA has been interesting this past week. I don't want to say like some teams are just going through the motions, but we are seeing which teams are ready to play, which teams are not. Let's get into it because there's a lot to get to tonight.
Yeah, let's get right to it. 6-game slate around the NBA and a marquee matchup between 2 of the biggest markets in the sport. The Los Angeles Lakers at home hosting the New York Knicks. Of course, LA, that hottest team in the Western Conference, winners of 7 in a row. Now just a 3-point favorite on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So Vecchio, answer it for us. Can the Lakers win 8 straight tonight?
I certainly think so, but I don't necessarily think this is going to be a back and forth barn burner. And we have seen the Knicks really struggle against teams above 500. And what has been the storyline for the Lakers over the past week and a half, 2 weeks since the return from the All-Star break? It has been their defense. It has been their defense that has been absolutely awesome. So I don't mind the game under in this. I specifically like Jalen Brunson under 25.5 points. The Lakers, they've held teams to 102 points or fewer in 7 of 8 games. They're not playing super fast. All this hype around Luka and LeBron reaching 50K and all this, like all this is great. And the storylines and the rivalry, all these things are fantastic. But we have to look at this from perspective of where things are. The Knicks are again not playing super well as of late. Like they're barely beating Miami when they're 7-point favorites. They've been struggling against the Cavs. They've been struggling against the Celtics. This is not a matchup where they want to get out and run. So I like the game under, and I like Jalen Brunson under.
Yeah, you're taking a look at that, too, because Karl-Anthony Towns missed the last game due to personal issues. We'll see if he's back in the lineup today, but the FanDuel Sportsbook opened this up as -3 overnight. Still sitting live currently on the FanDuel Sportsbook here in New Jersey at -3. You look at the 2 superstars tonight of the Lakers, Luka Doncic and LeBron James, points props 28.5 and 25.5 respectively. Is there an angle that you would play on LeBron James or Luka Doncic tonight here, Tom?
You know, a part of me wants to say that because I like the under, I want to take Luka under, and I think his line's a little bit inflated. Obviously, he started off still with the Lakers. He's had some great games since. I think he could hit the under. I also think he's obviously in play for a triple-double, like depending on what narrative I'm telling myself. I'm telling myself that this game's not going to have a ton of points. Luka will continue to do his thing, but you're going to tell me a 25, 11, and 10 line. Like, that's not going to surprise you if you saw that from Luka tomorrow morning. So I don't mind a Luka under. I think it's a better spot to go with Brunson just because I'm more confident in the Lakers defense overall. which is not something the last
start.
time I've ever said the Lakers defense is like something that impresses me.
Right. And as we look at it, Vecchio, they have been very impressive to the under since the All-Star break. 7 of their 8 games under, the only game over their most recent one. 230.5 is that total tonight in LA. Let's get to another streaking team in the Western Conference. Now out of the play-in tournament, simply a playoff team, the 6th seed. That would be the Golden State Warriors after the acquisition of a blockbuster player as well, Jimmy Butler. When he has started for Golden State 10 times, they have won 9 games, and the Dubs have covered in all 9 of those wins. They're a double-digit favorite tonight on the road inside the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. 10.5-point spread in favor of the Warriors. Total standing at 224. Vecchio, what's your approach to this game in BK?
It's kind of the same thing, and that's going to be the under. I specifically like the Nets team total under. It's 106.5. They've been under this in 8 out of 10 games. We've also seen the Nets along with a number of teams, and let's call it that tier of teams in the NBA, where they're signing players to 2-way contracts, they're bringing up 10-day contracts, whatever it might be. Some of their starters aren't seeing the same amount of minutes just because we're getting to that point in the season where they're focused on the draft, whatever it might be. So a team that's not good on offense to begin with, they're facing a defense that is really turning things up to another level. And this is a spot where, again, the Warriors, as you said, they're out of the play-in into the playoffs. This is not a matchup they want to screw around. We had their 10-point road favorite, which is a huge number. They're coming off a huge win at the Garden, but they still need to take care of business. And I think that just means going about things as rationally as possible. Nets team total under, and shade to the under on the game as well.
6-game slate around the association on this Thursday evening. We break it all down for you here on the early line on Sports Grid, your 2 premier NBA handicappers on the Spiz Grizz Network. He is Donnie. I am Ben. We talked about this game with TV Tom Vecchio just a segment ago. The Lakers hoping to win 8 consecutive at home tonight, hosting the New York Knicks. 3-point spread in favor of LA. That total now 230.5. In this 7-game win streak for Los Angeles, they have covered in 6 of the 7. First DRS, will it be 8 straight wins? And if so, would you lay the short number in favor of the Lakers at home tonight?
It's one of those where we handicap in the morning where I need to know the starting lineup. Am I getting Karl-Anthony Towns tonight? If I'm not, I'm not betting on the New York Knicks. And under, so if we do get Karl-Anthony Towns, that sways it a little bit because you're looking at a heavy public favorite on the Lakers. That momentum rides it all the way through. As we said, the New York Knicks playing in clutch games, marquee games, haven't turned out all that well. But also when we talk about clutch marquee, it's usually the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's the OKC Thunder, and we're talking about the Boston Celtics. And I always like to say, when you do play the New York Knicks in New York, people like to step up because it's Madison Square Garden, the mecca of basketball. So you get everybody's best punch typically. Well, the same always is true for the Los Angeles Lakers. That's the West Coast capital of basketball, which the Knicks didn't need any extra motivation coming into this game to take on LeBron and Luka, but this is a marquee game. So if I'm looking at a heavy public favorite in the Lakers, that line's not moving, and I'm getting Karl-Anthony Towns, I'm going to take another chance on the Knicks, only to be disappointed when another one of their starters sits out an hour before the game. But if they are whole and intact, why can't they win this basketball game? And I'd be willing to bet they do.
Yeah, the Knicks not great as an underdog. A lot of that has come against the Cavaliers, the Celtics, and the Thunder. New York just 3-6. ATS as a dog this year. All 3 covers an outright win. They did win their last game outright as a dog against the Memphis Grizzlies. But how do you want to conceptualize that? Is Memphis one of the top tier of the NBA? Is LA, right? We know New York is 0-7 against the Celtics, Cavs, and Thunder. Those 3 teams in the top 2 spots in each of their conference standings. 1-2 out east, Cleveland, Boston. 1-2 right now out west, OKC, LA, being the Lakers. That will be the interesting component of this. Also an opportunity, Donnie, for the Lakers to prove their might. They win 8 straight. They hammer the Knicks at home tonight. They cover as a 3-point home favorite in what is expected to be a competitive game. We start to take the Lakers even more seriously in terms of that overall ceiling of being a true conference contender. 230.5 the total. The Knicks were often playing in games 240, 245 plus. Mitchell Robinson back, more of an anchor defensively for Tom Thibodeau and New York. And the Lakers are turning into a solid defensive team as well. They did play to the over in their last game against New Orleans, winning that game by 20 plus. But their first 7 games since the All-Star break, DRS, to the under. If you're back to the Knicks tonight, how many points do you think we see?
Yeah, no, I would probably still would lean toward the over at that point. Like the Knicks usually like to get up and at it, and now you're actually finding LeBron James and Luka Doncic based on that last game where they're starting to become in sync with each other. Oh, we can both have really good games together and get everybody else involved. That's what I like. So I'm expecting a higher scoring game. And not 55 points, but the legitimate chance to get to the 230.5. If we do look at those LeBron James and Luka Doncic numbers, like, who do you trust tonight in order to do what? It's probably for me more looking at the assist numbers here, specifically from LeBron James in a bigger basketball game, getting everybody involved. I think he can get the 7 assists tonight. So instead of looking at points, I'll look at assists from LeBron James involving everybody in that starting lineup, because at 230, there's going to be a lot of buckets out there. Somebody's going to have to assist on those buckets.
If Luka Doncic can keep delivering those performances that we expect Luka Doncic to, but he had not early in his purple and gold tenure, I wonder how those props continue to update. LeBron scored 34 and got to 50,000 points the other night against New Orleans. Rivalry renewed, at least based on geography in history, but maybe not so much tonight. 14-point spread in favor of the Celtics hosting the Philadelphia 76ers. 40-point performances out of Peyton Pritchard and Derek White last night. Second leg of a back-to-back, albeit at home inside TD Garden. Is there anything that Philly can do, Donnie, to keep this game even remotely close?
I don't know if I want to lay like 2 touchdowns in the game with the Boston Celtics coming off a back-to-back, but for my money, I agree with that price point dropping. Look at the 226, already down to 220.5. So you see that graphic at 222. That's really what it was for most of the morning. I still think this game goes under. I don't know if the Sixers have 100 points in them tonight based on the offense they're going to be getting out of Andre Drummond and Gershon Yabusele. Come on.
There was a time, right? Early February, the 76ers had won 5 of 7. They were still 9 games below 500, but factoring more into the play-in tournament conversation from that juncture, Philly has lost 11 of 12 and has covered only once in their last 12 games. More around the NBA next. Live right here on the early line on Sports Grid, the final half hour of this Thursday. It's basketball, brother. It's conference tournament action. It's college basketball breakdowns coming up in just a moment, but we finish out a 6-game slate around the association on this Thursday. Let's head to Brooklyn. The Golden State Warriors, the cross-country trip, taking on the Nets. 10.5-point spread in favor of Golden State. That total at 224 now live on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Again, is Jimmy Butler starting? If yes, good thing since he was dealt to the Dubs. In 10 games that Jimmy Butler has been in the starting 5 for Steve Kerr and company, Golden State has won 9. They have covered in all 9 victories. Is Golden State going to continue that trend tonight in Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think they do. And even though that's an expensive line at 10.5, it's not as if they just flew into New York. I believe that was their last game. The Golden State Warriors play was against the New York Knicks, I believe. So
Correct.
still being
they've
in
been
the
on a
city
long
there.
East Coast trip,
Which is fine. Yep. You say, oh, well, the legs get a little bit tired. It's easier when you're staying in that same city here. So you'll be fine with that one. 224 is the number. I think it has a chance to go over, but I'd be willing to bet that the Golden State Warriors win this game by double digits, therefore covering the 10.5. We're at that type of the season where the Warriors are playing the best basketball version of them on the season. And the Brooklyn Nets are like, we probably don't want to make the playoffs because we want a better draft pick. Those are hard concepts to understand. Yes, they're professional athletes, but the Golden State Warriors should have no problems beating Brooklyn tonight.
Yeah, 5th and final game for Golden State on this East Coast road trip that has included stops in Orlando, Philadelphia. They played inside the Garden just a few nights ago. We highlighted Brooklyn, DRS, as a bad team that was good at covering numbers. Now 21-40. They have dropped 5 consecutive games. They have not covered in their last 3 as a dog. They are looking at Philadelphia, and they're like, make a run to the play-in tournament. We're trying to tank. Stop making us suck and giving us a chance to actually be a postseason team. The Bulls probably going to be the beneficiary of that all. The Dubs under in 2 straight games as well. Let's go to Orlando. A play-in tournament potential. When you look at those Eastern Conference standings at the All-Star break, the Magic were the 7th seed. They had an opportunity maybe to give Detroit some noise. Not really the case right now. The Magic have dropped 4 in a row. They're the 8th seed. The Bulls aren't going anywhere more than likely. They're in the 10th spot in the Eastern Conference standings, 2.5 games in front of both Brooklyn and Philadelphia, but 4 games behind Atlanta for that 9-10 split in terms of the play-in tournament. 7-point spread in favor of the Magic tonight in Orlando. Now add on the hook 7.5 point spread. Can Orlando play some better basketball, snap this 4-game slide at home tonight against Chicago?
I think they should, but these games are so tough to read. Certainly when you're trying to handicap in the morning, you take a look at the Chicago Bulls, questionable for the game, Josh Giddey, Kevin Huerter, and Lonzo Ball. Let's just say 2 of the 3 sit this one out. And also, what's the case for the Chicago Bulls? The play-in tournament does add excitement because teams should want to make the playoffs. But sometimes we feel like down the stretch, why are we making the playoffs to lose one game and be bounced out when we heard our draft probabilities at that point when the Orlando Magic are saying we're not playing good basketball? We need to start playing better basketball because we know we're making the playoffs. So for me, that 219 up there on the graphic does make some sense also. They usually play to an under, even though the Bulls don't play great defense. But just looking on who really cares more about this game, it's probably Orlando. So that line movement does make sense. Orlando should win and get the cover in this one.
The Magic still have the highest under percentage in the NBA. Oh, actually, no, Charlotte surpassed them. They have played the most overs in Orlando, 39, but they have played more games than the Hornets, who have played 38 of their 61 to the under, 62.3%, 61.9% for the Magic. Donnie, on this 4-game slide, the Magic have not been great. They have covered once. Last year, Orlando was overperforming expectation, a good underdog team. This year, not nearly as much. When the Magic have been booked as a favorite, 20-17 against the spread. 26.5 is the points prop for Paolo Banchero. He has scored 41 in 2 of the last 3 for the Magic. If you believe in Orlando, it is probably Banchero and Franz Wagner as well. Other play-in tournament team, that would be the Atlanta Hawks at home tonight against the Pacers, trying to better their position in the Eastern Conference standings. Indiana, 3-point road favorite now in Atlanta. Always a lofty total for games featuring the Hawks, 246.5. What's the breakdown in the A?
Yeah, it just seems like a coin flip game. You see the graphic at 2.5 live currently. It sits at a 3-point favorite for the Pacers, but understand this too. The Pacers are a heavy public favorite on the road. Are they the better team? Yes, but that line does give me a little bit of pause. But that total, as you see listed at 247 on the graphic live at the FanDuel Sportsbook in New Jersey, 246.5. Does anybody ever look at a game between the Pacers and the Hawks and say, you know what, that's probably going to go under? Now, granted, it's not 222.5 or 224.5. It is lofty at 246.5. Come on now. Both these teams, let's get the pencils out and write 120 apiece for both of these teams. Put you right in that category of knocking down the 246.5. As opposed to taking a side, I'd rather take the total in this game to the over.
The Hawks over in 4 straight, 5 of their 7 since the All-Star break. Indiana under in 4 of their last 5 as well. But Atlanta's going to let you score. I think if you get into the 120s for both teams, which feels very likely, then you do push to an over. The only other game of this 6-game NBA slate we have not broken down just yet, the Pels at home, DRS, only catching 4.5 against the Houston Rockets. 230.5 is that total. Yeah, the Pels did lose by 21 in Los Angeles to the Lakers earlier this week, but New Orleans still has won 5 of their last 8. Can they keep this game close tonight against Houston?
I think they do. I mean, certainly they're way out of playoff contention, playing contention, looking for their draft pick. But the estimated starting lineup is true tonight, and Zion is back in it. He's been ultra efficient over the past couple games. They're at home, and the Rockets, to be quite frank, not a great road team, not playing their best basketball game of the season. You look at the heavy public favorite being the Rockets. That line was as high as 5.5 earlier on. Now it's 4.5 there. I believe it. Look, it's hard to take bad basketball teams, but this line is telling me the Pelicans might be the right side tonight against the Rockets. I'll buy it.
DRS, Houston has lost 8 consecutive road games. Houston has dropped 3 in a row. The Rockets, since being 32-14 near the end of January in the 2 spot out west, have lost 10 of their last 15. Not a great recipe trying to play your best basketball for this young side. You're still trying to play your best basketball here in the home stretch of the NBA season in the month of March, but your postseason really not until April and May.